And welcome back to Survivor Hot Takes after a week off, because our lives are just never,
For what?
they're just a lot. But we're back to discuss episode 10 of
I think
Survivor
so.
43, where the episode before the penultimate episode of the
The
season. We're already
penultimate
there.
thriller, you mean,
Yeah,
Andrew?
it was a really good episode. I liked it.
It was, I
Um,
would say, one of the best episodes of the season. I would say that hands down.
And so, going right into it, it was teased that they were bringing this old challenge back,
Mhm.
and they did. So, what were your thoughts just before we even get to the result? What were your thoughts on them bringing it back and how Jeff was describing it?
Okay, so at first, my thought was I used to talk about this with Kim all the time, who's going to be joining us shortly. Hey Kim. But like I always talked about how the out of every single challenge there ever was, the challenge that I hate the most is that one. Because it's like not even like entertaining. Like watching them, it's like who's gonna die and when, you know? But I was excited to see it come back, which is really surprising. But I think it's just like for the nostalgia aspect, because we haven't seen it like in years, you know,
Yeah,
and so it was good to be able, oh Kim, hey. And but so it was good to see like that nostalgia aspect, just to kind of see how players in new Survivor were able to adapt to an old Survivor-esque physique. Does that make sense?
yeah. Well, and it's weird because Jeff has spent the last 3 seasons talking about how this is harder Survivor now and all that. And then he advertises this challenge by saying, "Hey, this is back from the day when we actually like tried to kill our players, and we brought it back for you guys."
And the
And I
monster
think,
is hungry.
yeah, and I think that was one of the big, I guess, issues I had with how everything went about with the challenges. It was a lot of contradictory things going on where we're saying over the last year and a half that this is a harder version of Survivor, and then you describe this challenge as a relic of the past and how it's really
Right.
hard, but then you don't let them do it to complete. Now I understand, they with the tides and all that, but
Right.
at a certain point your arms just start to get tired. At a certain point, yeah, okay, you're not going to start feel yourself drowning anymore, but your body just starts to give out on you. So
Yeah.
what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess like my question for you is like so the difficulty of the challenge is already like sufficed. You know what I mean? Like the hardest part. So I understand, but my thought is maybe they kind of pulled what they did in 42, and you know how it got so hard that one time that Jonathan was literally the only one who could complete it. So they moved the starting point closer up. I think they probably basically just chose to hand it to them just out of a safety precaution, so they don't have like another heat stroke episode 2.0. Just out of the safety and precaution, everybody wins. It completely messes up all your choices and options, you know? So, I don't know. That's what I think. What do you think?
Well, as in why they did it?
Yeah, why?
Well, I feel like one that, but two because they're rushing because it's 26 days. They have to get
That is
through
so true.
everything, and they need time to strategize and even get them back to the beach, off camera and all that. But
Mhm.
I feel like they were at a certain point. They realized, okay, these two might actually just go all night, and we can't have them go all night.
True.
Even though it would be great, it'd be great to bring this challenge back and have two people go that long. At a certain point, we've got a schedule to follow, so we're gonna have
Mhm.
to call it there. And it's crazy that they didn't. It doesn't seem like they thought this all the way through. Mainly because if this was always their what's to say plan in the event that a tie happens, you know full well that realistically, as you're playing this game out, there might be a lot of advantages left at this point in the
True.
game. And what we almost got, we're going to touch on a little bit later, is we almost got a situation where nobody gets votes. So you know, for what it was, how did you enjoy the challenge?
It was stressful, but I actually really enjoyed it. There were a few honorable mentions in some of the challenge that I want to give effort where effort is due. You know, so like the fact that Cody literally went down, nose dove, came back up, nose dove, and came back up again. Iconic. But then he, lost. So I thought that was really cool. Carla and Owen, I think that I might have anticipated Owen winning, but like Carla is becoming like this huge challenge beast that I never anticipated. So I think that all in all, that the challenge went pretty well and anticipated. I don't think that it's ever going to come back though. I mean, if they prove that you're able to not only beat the challenge, but have multiple winners, that's never happened in Survivor history, right?
Where they didn't plan on it to happen. Yeah. I mean, they've had but
where they didn't, where people literally beat the challenge,
Well, and I think that the part that we kind of glanced over, and I want to touch on it because as I was watching with my friends, they don't really watch the show, and we were at a bar, so like I was only watching it on mute. Right. I was reading the subtitles, and when Cody gets the advantage, and he writes down Owen, everyone's like, "Oh, is Owen like the challenge beast?" I'm like, "Well, no, not really. There is no challenge beast on this season. So why do you think it was Owen that Cody picked?"
I have no idea. I think that it's probably because the last time Owen knew that his name was on the line, he like with the standing thing, he knew that he had to he was all in it. His heart was in it too, So I think they probably also he kind of used that same mentality, knowing that Owen was on the line again this time. I don't know. I guess that Cody's also thought process was it would probably be between him as a swimmer, and then also Owen. They're both very active. They've both done really, really well with a lot of these challenges so far. My money was on Cassidy, though. I thought that she was definitely going to be the winner. She was calm, steady, like a rock.
And going off of that, I do like this advantage. I think this is another one of these advantages that's not game breaking. I almost would want them to do it a little earlier in the merge, if anything, but it was fine where it was. Thankfully, nothing crazy happened that would have prevented what we're going to talk about later. But I would be cool with this advantage coming back.
Do you think that they should do anything that they should tinker with it for the viewership experience? A lot of people were mentioning on other podcasts, we shouldn't reveal who he chose until the final tribal, for a shock effect, or, I mean, it wouldn't really have as much of a shock effect, but I think it would be a little exciting. He did it.
I feel like that is something that they could they could do down the line. I think that this was just kind of let's test the waters. They really hated our last twist that we did around this point in the game the last two seasons. Let's try something else out and see what happens. And I do feel like a lot of people did enjoy this challenge, or not the challenge, this advantage because, like I said, it's not game breaking. But I think that would add to and this episode was already doing really well with dragging the viewer along, looking at the whole idol search in my head was going to end on the third person. Whoever the third person was going to be the person that found it. And then after the third person came and walked away, it just kept on going, and I'm like,
this is infuriating B-roll I've ever seen in my life.
And I was actually, at that point, I didn't care who found it. I knew I was going to be excited for whoever did.
Yeah.
And so when it finally happened, I was like, you know what? Good on production for that. Yeah. I think that was a very well shot scene. I know there's a lot of scenes cut together, but it was a really well shot scene.
I think so too. I think that was kind of added more to that humor aspect that I feel like 43 is a little bit lacking in as compared to how they edited 42. I just feel like there's so much more room for subtle hints of comedy, and you're able to see that a little bit more with 43 because of just how they were able to edit so many people coming in and out so quickly. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we get through the challenge. We have two people win, Owen and Carla. And we end up in a situation where now we have three people immune, but as we know, there are possibilities where other folk could also be immune, right? Am I right on that? Yeah. There are people that are actually immune, and then so I don't actually remember any of the strategy and I've watched this episode twice, and I don't remember any of the strategy. I just remember Sammy's screwed.
Yeah.
Sammy's going, and if this episode goes the way that the rest of the season's going, usually if someone's being portrayed as screwed, they usually go home. This season hasn't really done the greatest job of like, oh yeah, it might.
And when they did like his little background story, I was like, oh, that's it.
I think it's right around the same episode that Lindsay got her background story last season, and I thought that
panicking.
Was for her.
Oh, I was panicked. That was the same Do or Die. Yeah, I think it was the exact same episode. She had Do or Die. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So we get to Tribal, and for once I was relatively entertained with this Tribal. I haven't really been invested in a lot of the Tribals this season. And I think that when Sammy said what he said, I feel like that's what added a little bit of intrigue to what's going to happen.
Sure.
Do you think that it's a good play, good move on his part, saying, hey, I'm playing Shot in the Dark?
I think that was good, because I think if anything, then it would have pushed people to at least try to like diversify their voting. Even if one person switched it might have completely changed the trajectory if Sammy were to get shot in the dark. I'm shocked that no one, like, maybe just because of Sammy's resume of being a little bit of a liar, like they just didn't take his word for it. But like, they all stuck completely to Sammy. Why do you think that Carla switched her vote? Because they were really leading that she was going to vote Cass.
I don't know, and I'm curious to see how if that plays out at all. It might not even get brought up again, but I actually don't know. I don't. Maybe it's just going with the numbers. It could have been just going with the numbers.
But how would she have known that? Because that was like Jesse's plan was to make Carla look weaker in front of the jury by not being on the right side of the vote again. So my thought is like maybe Gabler like threw her one, or Owen.
Gabler's not doing anything.
He could be doing something.
I think I'm officially out on Gabler.
No, because didn't Gabler let Owen know last minute whenever Janine was the target? So like, true. I mean, he has a pattern of causing chaos, so I'm thinking maybe that's what he did.
Okay. Gabler, and I talked about this with Adam and Gideon, I think, and I talked about it with Chris on the Nullified Take, that I think that Gabler has the least best chance at winning, and everyone disagrees with me. They all think that Owen actually has the worst chance at winning of those 6 people.
Really? Why do they feel that way? Because all of Owen's allies are currently on the jury.
Because Owen's been on the wrong side of all the numbers, that whole thing.
Well, yeah, but all of his allies are on the jury. I mean, even though he's on the wrong side of the numbers, he's able to get. He's very similar to Noelle in that way.
I'm glad I'm back with the same person. I think that it goes Jesse, who's very clearly winning, right? Like, there's no way that Jesse doesn't win, right?
You would think so. Like, I think he could also be voted, like, maybe he's not good at fire making. I feel like that's really his only shot,
Yeah, I feel like
to me, he's giving Omar,
Yeah, but like better. Like, because
better in terms of just like still staying under the radar. I think that there was more talk about Omar before, at this pace in the game. But like Jesse, it's still, according to the interviews, like he still has 2 idols. I have no idea why Cody never snagged his idol back, but I feel like that's going to be important for this next episode. And like, I mean, I think is in great with everyone. I don't know why anyone's like not realizing that like Jesse and Cody together are a force, Yeah,
and when Jesse and Gabler are the only 2 people that don't have votes against them, and I think that the difference between the 2 of them is I feel like people are just bringing Gabler along for the ride.
He's in the perfect position to be a GOAT. So is Sammy, in my opinion,
But with Jesse, I feel like it's because of the relationships that he's built that has, put him in this spot, and it's going to be really interesting this episode because he's got 2 idols. There's going to be an immunity winner, and Carla has hers. So if none of the 4 of them, none of the 3 of them, 2 with 3 idols. Sorry.
Yeah.
Win immunity. There's going to be some fun times to be had in this next episode.
Who do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be Cass? I think it's going to be Cass.
I feel like it has to be, right? I mean, unless Jesse decides he wants to take out his boy Cody, then, but
That which would be smart, you know. I feel like that's the smartest move Jesse could make to propel himself into the final tribal.
Cody will vote for him at the end.
Yeah.
So like it's fine to get rid of him. It's fine to get rid of him now. But I was sitting there. I'm like, Jesse. If there was a hierarchy, like Jesse sitting next to any other two people, I feel like wins. I feel like Cody and Carla are 2 and 3 interchangeable, and then Kathy, Owen, Gabler.
In your opinion, what do you think makes Cody like an interchangeable 2 or 3
with Carla?
No, just like in terms of just like the ranking of hierarchy. Like Jesse's number 1, Cody and Carla are kind of in the same boat. What makes him comparable to Carla in that ranking?
I feel like Cody has good relationships. He's been in the dominating duo for pretty much the entire game. I feel like he does well enough at many little things that would put him up there. I feel like Carla, everyone keeps saying that her stock has dropped. Okay, we're not getting the Carla of the pre-merge, but I don't think that she's like fallen off.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that it shows that her back's up against the wall, and that's like a very like Erica and Mary Ann-esque edit that they got, you know, right before they won. So I don't think that she's out. I just think that I think it's showing that she has to make a big move, you know, to kind of put herself, propel herself over to the final tribal. You know,
and I mean the big move for me, I feel like it's going to happen the first hour of the finale, the final 5.
Yeah.
Because I feel like final 6 is going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't think it's going to be big because Jesse has 2 idols, Carla has 1. Let's say, I don't know, Owen wins immunity.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse's definitely playing both of those idols. Who he plays them for, if he decides to play both, he might just play one.
I was gonna say, like, is he going to though? Because Mary Ann didn't play her last one, and that was like the big jaw dropping moment of the final.
So maybe he plays one, and then all of a sudden it's Cassidy or Gabler that goes home, and neither one of them what I feel like is a big move here. So the next big move would have to happen at 5. Like, you know, that's
Well, I mean, I will say, like, I really think that there's a reason that in all of his interviews, he still has 2 idols in his possession. I think that this is all going to lead up to basically Cody versus Jesse in this penultimate episode, and Jesse's going to take out Cody. I think that's like the best, like that would be a shocker, but it's the smartest thing that Jesse can do to make sure that he secures his win.
Yeah, and you say that, and I keep thinking back to, I know this is kind of going in reverse order at this point, but I felt like they were burying the knowledge of power all season, so that when it finally gets played, it's going to be like, oh my goodness, you know,
right?
It actually worked, just because we weren't hearing much about it, and so that kind of was a letdown where it still came up not safe. I'm like, oh,
and shot in the dark, like
shot in the dark, not knowledge of power. No, shot in the dark, not knowledge of power. So do you think that's a wrap on Shot in the Dark?
I think that I don't think that it's gonna be gone. I think they're gonna change it, and they're gonna change the name because that's what they did that's what they should do. I think that it's gonna be dead the way we knew it. The best way they can tweak it, you know, is going to be able to either increase the odds, so 1 in 4, or continue to make the odds increase gradually every time someone uses it, which thus promotes people using it more often. I like the concept of it. I agree with you, Jay. I think that it's going to happen, but I really I want to make sure that it's going to be something that actually ever happens, because otherwise it's just this like stupid little like side piece that we never really see effective, you know?
Yeah. I think that what we know as the Shot in the Dark is going to go away. And it sucks because I actually liked that mechanic when they introduced it in 41. I thought that it could lead to some interesting things, and it's, you know, it has never worked. And, you know, I would have been excited if it had worked this time just because it worked, not necessarily because I was a Sammy fan or anything. I liked Sammy. So I think I think it'll go away for a bit and they'll bring it back as something else. Yes, like you said.
Yeah.
But the thing that I kept alluding to earlier with this is we almost ended up in a situation where no one got votes.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would have happened? Because it was very, like, it was realistically, like there was a big chance that it could have happened.
So they would have probably gone to a revote, and that would have been Cass, don't you
Well,
think?
they wouldn't have been able to revote
Because there's no votes?
because if no one can get votes, so who would have been immune? So let's say it would have been
Sammy, it would have been Carla and Owen. But then that would have still left Gabler, Cass, Jesse, and Cody.
yes, but Carla has an idol. Jesse has 2.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have been able to play it.
Why?
Because tribal council already started. They have to play it before the votes are read.
Yeah, but so I mean, so does the who won that? Cody, his didn't get revealed until right before the votes are read too.
Well, mine was going to like. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm saying all that would have had to happen is Cody. It shows that Cody picked Owen. Let's say Cody had picked someone else. No, I don't. There was a way that this would have worked. There would have been no votes, and now like I've talked myself in circles, and I can't.
Well, because my mind keeps going to second chances, like that crazy advantage gate, and then also the time whenever in second chance the Jeremy season, like. Yeah. Whenever like they all were like, well, they're not going home. No, they're not going home. What are you going to do? And they ended up all having to decide together who was going to go home. I feel like worst case scenario, it would have been exactly like that. A complete, like they would have to have a conversation and decide and choose one person to leave.
I'm so frustrated because I should have just written it down, but there was like a way where no one could have gotten votes and everyone would have been immune. So I feel like at that point they would have just said, hey, you know what? Go home and we'll just vote out 2 people tomorrow. That's what I think would have happened because you can't get Sareed out in that situation because there would be nobody eligible to get voted out.
Yeah, well, I just feel like I'm kind of having a hard time understanding what you're saying because like there are people who are vulnerable, you know? So I guess let's
say if everyone plays idols, it wouldn't be.
Cass would still be vulnerable. Gabler would still be vulnerable. Like Jesse's not going to play all of his idols, and Carla wouldn't play her idol for Cass. Am I like just not understanding this right?
Oh. There's also the shot in the and then Sammy plays a shot in the dark, and it succeeds. Then
in theory, everyone would be 0, like so it would be tied.
Yeah, then they'd
have to revote for the people who are vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be between Cass and Gabler, and we all know who has a better chance of winning the game. So, like, I feel like that would take out Cass. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I really talked myself into a circle on that one.
No, it would be a very chaotic moment, though.
It would be. But other than that, you know, Sammy goes home. I think Sammy goes out like a champ. He gave it his all. He knew he didn't buy into people's crap. I can't believe that you're doing this. Like they were trying to basically manipulate him into feeling bad for playing a shot in the dark, and he didn't buy into it. So I think Sammy goes out like a champ. His exit words were very fun.
They were so funny.
And I think that we have a very interesting final 6. I'm rooting for 5 of them. And I'm hoping that this end game, despite the fact there are all these advantages, it's still exciting despite the fact that we know we're going to get a whole bunch of advantages played probably in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I think that it's going to be even more interesting now that we literally have made it to the end, and the only advantages now, or like anything that's available, are those 3 idols. I'm excited to see how they're played and for who they're played for. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're going to have our episode for the penultimate one, and then we're going to try to do a panel for the finale like we did last time. So we have to get our schedules on the same page, and then we have to get at least 6 people's other schedules on the same page, maybe more. But thank you guys for bearing with us. I know it's been a hectic season, but it looks like no, we'll see. But thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all on the other side.